So I know I'm a bit late on this, but I wanted to do a podcast about Wrestle Kingdom, which happened last week, and because so much went down that I'm actually making a separate little thing for this. Um, I didn't watch the whole night one event. I did not catch the pre-show, and nor did I get the first three matches. I started watching the middle of the FinJuice God match. I thought it was an okay match. It it didn't really. It was just a kind of generic, tag team match. It did have a little bit of extra emotion behind it because David Finley's kind of he hasn't had his big break. I mean, I get he's in New Japan, he's in Ring of Honor, but he hasn't had that big moment. And I think this was it for him. I mean, I guess you could count the World Tag League win, but this was like the big one, and it was a big moment for Juice as well. I think it puts God. I mean, maybe out of the title picture for a while. Maybe somebody else comes up to challenge. Maybe the Tom of the Plumber in quotes thing is, you know, they're gonna do something about that. So moving on to the next match. This was actually one I thought was really good because I remember I woke up at I think around 4:20 ish a.m. that day. So I it was kind of like you're waiting for the main event because you're tired, you want to go back to sleep, and I actually thought Mox and Lance Archer, I thought that was the perfect match to have in there, and that kind of mixed something a little bit different, a little more hardcore, to switch it up and keep you on your toes and not just keep being like, oh, I'm waiting for the main event. I don't even care about these other matches, but I thought it was a great match. I actually paid a lot of attention to it, more so than the next match actually. Even though I knew the next match was going to be top two, top three match of the two nights. I could not keep 100% focused because I was so tired. Waking up so early, and it was like at that point I was waiting for the main event, even though I knew it was going to be good. I said it before. I thought this match was going to be one of the top two, actually top two matches of the entire two-night event, but I just couldn't keep my attention on it. It didn't have that element that the previous match did, because the previous match was a Texas death match, so you're expecting a lot of violence. But in that match I knew it was going to be entertaining, and I actually popped at one point during that match, which was the moment when Ospreay went for the Sasuke special. I think he landed. Hiromu dodged it, and then Ospreay landed on his feet. Hiromu goes for the German. Will Ospreay lands on his feet again. He backflips out of it, goes up the ramp, runs down, and then goes for something, and then Hiromu dodges and pushes him right into the ring. Ospreay, I don't know how he does this. He goes between the bottom and middle rope. Like, to me, I don't know how a human could possibly do that. That is such a narrow space. And Will Ospreay, yes, he's a junior. I mean, he's a junior heavyweight, I guess, right now. He still qualifies as one, but that a junior heavyweight is not a small person. I mean, this dude's like at least 190 probably. I mean, professional wrestlers, these dudes are huge. So being a junior heavyweight does not take away from that. And somehow Ospreay fits between that, goes for the Sasuke special another time and hits it. And I actually jumped out of my seat for that one. It was just pretty, amazing, and that just shows how good that spot was. Because I was so tired, and to get me out of my seat at that point, that took a lot. And the Okada Ibushi match, that was great, and I thought that was actually a better match. I thought that was the best match of the two-night event, but that did not get me out of my seat. It got my heart beating, which the junior heavyweight match did not do. It did, but not as much. But I think that was probably my biggest pop, because I don't know how you like coordinate those things, because I mean, it's possible they talked about it before, but also then if they did that, that just takes such a creative kind of mindset, because normally when you're thinking of spots, you're thinking about um you know a little bit more to it, like more about the finishers and stuff. And the thing is, what's crazy is Hiromu didn't even do much. He just dodged him a couple times and attempted a German. And normally, if you're doing a spot, there's like a crazy spot like that, there's a little more involvement for both people. The fact that it was just that, like, it was so simple but yet so complex, which was, I think it was a really great spot. I'm really happy that Hiromu won. Oh yeah, and also to address my predictions for the previous two matches, I did think Finjuice was gonna win because I didn't know what else God had to do as champions. So I think it's a breath of fresh air for the heavyweight tag team division. Set up some new matchups, and because if Tama and Tangaloa stayed as champions, what else would they be doing? They would be facing what, Lij again, Finjuice. The, I mean, I guess I don't even know who else. There's not even really another big name that I can think of, like, off the top of my head. It's always kind of been God, Lij, and the Young Bucks, I guess. But the Young Bucks left because the Young Bucks were always junior heavyweight tag team. They were always juniors except when they switched to heavyweight. I mean, but I don't really, that it just shows a lack of depth, and I think I'm gonna address that later on. I think it's one of New Japan's bigger problems at this point. But we'll address that and a bunch of other New Japan issues later on. I actually thought Lance Archer was going to walk out the champion in his match against Jon Moxley because I felt like Jon Moxley, he's got a lot of AEW commitments, and I didn't know if they wanted him as the I didn't know if New Japan wanted him, as a primarily AEW guy to hold the title, but I guess it does bring the title a little more attention because he's so much more well known than Lance Archer. I thought Lance Archer was gonna win against him and Juice the next night to really put him over, but I guess they want to keep him. They don't want to elevate him too much, and they think that Jon Moxley's a guy. I mean, I can't really blame him. Jon Moxley, and he's also going to elevate the prestige of that title because the U.S. Championship has kind of been a little bit how do I say it? Because first it was what, Kenny, Jay White, I think, and then it was Juice Robinson. After, like, by the middle of Jay White's reign, not much attention was being given to the title. But at this point, I think it's a little better now, especially with Moxley there. So we'll see what happens with that. I did think Hiromu was gonna win because it's the same thing as the God thing. What else does Ospreay have left? He's beaten everybody, and I think he's been teasing kind of a heel turn for a while. I think ever since going back to last year when I forgot who he faced in Ring of Honor. Was it Jay Lethal? He kind of teased a little bit of a heel side, and I think he's kind of been teasing it throughout this whole year. He's remained a babyface, but he's had like a few little bit of heel elements to his character. So I think that maybe this really angers him, and maybe he turns heel. And we know Ibushi turned heel. That's another thing I'll address later. But I'm happy Hiromu came back and won. Again, it's really the same thing as Finjuice. He's given the division a breath of fresh air. He's going to be facing a lot of new people. I mean, they've all faced off before, but, Ospreay's just faced them all because he's had, quite a long reign in such a short span of time. He's faced so many that he's really got nothing else, and Hiromu's, I think, that guy, that he's the right guy, put the belt back on him because he lost it only because he was injured. I think it's a great decision. Honestly, the junior division, Shingo left. So it's got a little bit of that same depth issue as the heavyweight tag team division. Not that it doesn't have depth, because it does. They got Ryu Lee and I can't really think. I'm kind of blanking right now, but I know they got a few guys in there, but it would be a lot better if they had more. So I guess because they've been losing guys here and there. They've lost Kushida. They lost Ricochet a while ago. So you kind of got to build it up again. And you might be losing Ospreay to the heavyweight division, and at that point, I think if that happens, I think the junior division could be in trouble. So we'll see where they go with that. Your Naito Jay White match, I think we all knew Naito was winning. Both nights, and I think It was interesting. I'll talk about Jay White's match the next night. It was a pretty solid match, I think. It was. I feel like Naito and Jay White, they don't really have that chemistry. Just watching their match from the G1 and watching their match now, I don't know if they're saving stuff like some other superstars do, because I know, I'll there's a lot of stuff I'm just gonna talk about briefly now that I'm gonna talk more about later on. But like Kenny and Okada, they've said before, if they ever I don't even know how they still have more in the tank. But Kenny, I think it was Kenny that said if they had stuff saved for a fifth matchup if they ever get to it. So I'm not sure if Naito and Jay White are doing the same thing, but I I haven't really seen a lot of good stuff from them. And I'm not knocking it for being a bad match, because it wasn't. It was a pretty good match. A lot of good heel work from Switchblade Jay White and Naito being his usual tranquilo self. But I feel like they just don't have a style that meshes, and I think that's another issue with Jay White, is that his move set, it's a lot just based on throwing moves, and a lot of it just kind of seems so segmented and jagged when he's in a lot of matches. And he's a great heel, don't get me wrong. That's a great addition to what he does, but I feel like he's got to add a little bit more. Maybe some running moves, some striking ability. He's got to add some strikes in there, maybe some dives, just various stuff. I'm not him. He probably knows what's best for his character, but I I don't know if his attitude of not really giving it blank. I don't know if that's part of his heel character, or if it really is what he is. Because if that's really how he thinks, I don't know. He might have a limit in the pro wrestling industry, but I'm pretty sure that's just part of his heel character, because I don't think he would have made it this far with that attitude if he was really like that. So I think that he probably does know that he could give his moveset a little bit of that oomph. And I don't know when he's gonna do it, but I think until he does that, he's not gonna necessarily be ready for the to be that top guy. And I don't know if they realized that earlier on this year. I thought Tanahashi should have kept the title, because I felt like Jay White just wasn't ready. And then they just put it back on Okada. I guess in the long run, he lost it to Naito, makes for a nice story. But I think Jay White was, I don't know if it was the right decision to put the title on him ever. I feel like he needs to do a bit more. Because, if you think about the other top guys, Okada, Naito, Tanahashi, those guys have been obviously always in the heavyweight title scene. Kenny, when he was still there. Tanahashi, I think. I don't know if I already said him. But no, in Ibushi now, these guys have such expansive movesets. And it goes for any promotion that has, well, I shouldn't say any promotion, because a lot of promotions have bad champions. But for any promotion, when you look at a good champion, they have, almost always, unless, it's a mid-card title or something. If you're looking at, very prestigious titles, the guys that are holding it, they always have very expansive movesets. That's why Okada's been on top for so long. I'm not justifying it, because I don't think that's right. But I'm saying that in order to take that next step, Jay White has some, parts of his wrestling to improve on. So moving on to the main event, Okada versus Ibushi. I think this is an early match of the year candidate. I thought it was better than Okada's match the next night with Naito. I thought it was better than the Hiromu match with Ospreay, and I thought it was better than the Naito Jay White match, obviously. It had so much great storytelling, I feel like, combined with such great action. I used to think that matches, the quality of it was just based on, are you like on your toes, and you don't know who's gonna win the match at the end. I used to think that was the whole thing, and I feel like that's, because I used to be, I still am, but I'm a huge sports fan. But when I wasn't as hardcore of a wrestling fan, I used to think that, I remember watching AJ Styles versus John Cena at the Royal Rumble 2017 and thinking that was the match of the year. And it was a candidate, and I think it was a great match still now. And it was, but the thing that really I thought what made it so great was because, you didn't know who was gonna win at the end. It was unpredictable. The betting odds were practically even, and that made it hard to predict, kept you on your toes. But I feel like this match it did that. May Not as much I think as a Cena Styles match. That match is always gonna be in my head, forever. I'm never gonna forget that match just because that was the first match I think wrestling match ever where I was like, oh my god, I don't know who's gonna win. But well, I mean, there were other matches, but it was the first one that I watched live. That I was just on my toes, like heart, beating 100 miles an hour, not knowing what the hell was gonna happen. I feel like Okada Ibushi, it did that. Not to that extent, but the storytelling was insane. The the logic behind every move, every strike, the way Ibushi was just, had all that anger building up inside of him. And now they're turning him heel, and I'm not. I'll address again. That's another thing I'll address later on. I don't really like that decision because I think it's a bit early, but again, we'll talk about that later on. So I actually thought Okada was gonna win, and I kind of wanted him to win, but there was like I wanted him to win up until the start of the match, and I was just like, the way Ibushi just, I mean, he's been so good, and like the aggression that just oozes out of him, like the emotion and everything. Like I was like, oh my god, maybe he and Naito have been saving something, like Okada did with Kenny, and maybe they have something more to offer that we haven't seen yet. And I was like, although Okada and Naito would make for a nice story, you don't know what Ibushi and Naito have to offer either because they had some very good matches throughout the past. Well, I mean, we're in 2020 now. They had some very good matches in 2019. So I thought, they had, Naito and Jay White, they had a match that was about as good as some of Naito and Kota Ibushi's matches. But the difference is that you kind of feel that Naito and Ibushi, with their expansive move sets, they've got more to offer. They have more that we haven't seen yet that they can do. So, at the middle of the match, I was like, I want, if it wasn't for, the match the next night, I would have wanted wholeheartedly for Ibushi to win because you're just you just kind of, he made you root for him. But, Okada won at the end, and I felt like, there's a part of me inside that also, that always wanted to see Naito beat Okada at the Dome after he lost 2 years ago at Wrestle Kingdom 12. So that brings us to the next night. And this night, I mean, this was crazy because I actually stayed up for this match. I did not go to sleep at all. I tried to sleep earlier, and I just couldn't fall asleep. And, I stayed up, and I was awake for like 20 hours that day. It was crazy. So I basically saw the whole event. I didn't see the dark match, actually. That's the one thing I did not see, which Evil, Bushi, and Shingo won for the Never Six-Man tag titles. That's another thing we'll get to later, title prestige. But if we're moving on to the main card, we had Liger's retirement match. He had a little, he had a post-match speech, I think, and they did a little bit more for him, to remember him on New Year's Dash, and he had a press conference also. They brought back some guys from the past like Fujiwara, and I think it was actually a handicap match. Oh wait, no, it wasn't. It was 2-on-2. Fujiwara was the manager. My bad. I did not actually realize that during the match, but I think it was good of him put over Hiromu and Ryu Lee, FKA Dragon Lee, on their way out. Hiromu and Ryu Lee are gonna be the leading guys in the junior division, I think, moving forward because Ospreay might move on. Of course you got Ishimori, Phantasmo, those guys, but I think Hiromu and Ryu Lee are gonna be the clear top guys from here on out because Shingo's gone, Ospreay's on, Ospreay's moved on, so it was the thing is it was actually a pretty solid match. It had some nice night moments, nice spots, just good solid work all around. So I think Meltzer's rating, I'm looking at it right now, is 3.5 stars. I think it's pretty fair. And 3.5 stars for somebody that's Liger's age, it's actually really not bad at all. It's actually pretty good because Liger's getting old and he's not the guy he used to be. And I've never been the biggest fan of Liger, but for him to go this long and still be able to put on a solid match like this, it's pretty incredible because a lot of other guys, you know, I'm not gonna say who, but a lot of other guys can't do it at his age. He's been doing this, I think, longer than the Undertaker. He's been doing it for 30 some years. So moving on to the next match, the junior tag title match. It was Roppongi 3K versus Phantasmo and Ishimori. I actually thought that Bullet Club was gonna win that match, but obviously that didn't happen. I don't know. I feel like the junior tag title it changes hands more than it needs to, and Roppongi 3K has been champions before, so I'm not sure really what the reasoning is behind this move. Maybe it's to free up Phantasmo and Ishimori to put him in this, in more singles competition. Maybe. Oh yeah, I forgot Robbie Eagles is still a junior. Um, but anyway, I'm not really sure why they did this. I guess we'll see. I thought it was a pretty solid match, but again, I was like, it was the same thing as the previous night. I'm just looking for the main event, and even more so at this point because I hadn't slept. At least the previous night I got some sleep. This one I didn't. So at this point, I was just like, blah blah blah. I didn't really care about this match, but it was, I did realize that it was a solid match. Next match was ZSJ versus Sonata. It was, another one like that, except it was obviously better. A lot of good technical wrestling. I think ZSJ winning was the right decision because I think they're gonna make Sonata win the New Japan Cup this year because he's been moving one round farther every year, and I think it would make for a good story. He made it to the finals last year against Okada, so I think he's gonna take it this year. He's probably gonna take the Intercontinental Championship from Naito if my guess is correct, and then Naito will continue as the heavyweight champion. LIJ will basically be dominating. Yeah, because I don't think they want Sonata holding two championships, and ZSJ's taken some big losses in the past year, so I think that's why they wanted him to retain. And also, I don't know how heavily Sonata's going to be involved in the British scene, because I think he did make some appearances last year, but obviously not as much as ZSJ, who is from Great Britain. So I'm not actually. Another thing is I'm not sure who's making the decision for that match to see who wins, whether it's Rev Pro or New Japan, because it's happening on a New Japan event, but it's a Rev Pro title. I'm assuming it was Rev Pro, but I'm not completely sure. Now the next match, again, I feel like Jon Moxley, he always brings something different, and I thought this match was a lot better than many people did. I thought that it was something different, just like the previous night. Because Moxley's, he's so hardcore. He just got that attitude, and he's different, which makes you pay attention to his matches. So I actually woke up for his match. I wasn't asleep, but like figuratively, I woke up, and I think it's unjust that his match is not recommended on Cage Match, but because I thought it was a good match, probably because I was more awake for that match. But I think we all kind of knew that he was going to beat Juice just because I don't think Juice is ready to be a double champion. As good as he is, I'm not knocking him, but I just feel like if whoever won the first night was not going to lose to Juice. So the next match was for the Never Openweight title. Goto defeated Kenta. I thought Kenta was going to retain because it's a little bit like Roppongi 3K, where Goto's been the championship so many times had this championship so many times. He's become synonymous with it. I thought they would finally, give Goto that little push to the, maybe the Intercontinental Championship scene, but I guess they're going to keep him there. I think this was a bad decision because I think there's really no reason to switch the title. Switch the champion, and they've been switching it quite a few times, and I think Kenta, I think Goto's been doing a lot more than Kenta has, and I think Kenta's more of a suitable champion because he hasn't consistently been in the Never picture, because obviously he just came to New Japan. I think it was this summer. He came to New Japan from WWE. So this is another thing where I'm just like, sometimes I just question New Japan's booking, but again, it's just another thing where you gotta let it go. see what happens. Jay White versus Kota, and I'm actually looking at cage match right now. I'm wondering why Goto and Jay White's match, it was 2.5 and 3 stars respectively, which doesn't really make sense because the fans are actually giving those two matches some solid ratings. But and I thought Jay White versus Kota Ibushi, I thought it was a decent match because I actually tried to get some sleep. I was like, I don't want to just completely, um, I don't want to waste my time watching a match when I'm not even gonna pay attention. But I just was like, oh, if I go to sleep, then I'm not gonna be able to wake myself up from the main event. Screw it, let's just watch it. And I missed the middle of it, but I saw the ending. I thought it was pretty good. So I think Meltzer's being a bit harsh here. I thought it was a pretty solid match for what I did see because I did catch the ending. Yeah. So moving on. Jeez, so many matches for these two nights. Moving on, the next thing was Jericho and Tanahashi. I was looking forward to that a lot. I think it's like Chris Jericho, one of the greatest of all time, versus Tanahashi, who's been the ace of New Japan for who knows how long at this point, for so many years. Kind of just get used to it. And when he retires, he's getting up there in age. So when he retires, it's going to be a little awkward. And same thing goes for Jericho because we've seen these two guys for so many years that having them gone, it's going to be awkward. But Jericho, he offered Tanahashi, if Tanahashi won, he would get an AEW title shot. But it was smart of Jericho to do that to spice up the match, put some stakes on it. But I actually predicted that Jericho was going to win in my last podcast, and he did. He won, I think, by I think it was the Walls of Jericho or the Lion Tamer, or was it the Judas? I don't even. I'm a week out, so I don't really remember. But I do remember it was an okay match. I think it was not exactly the 4 1/4 star rating that Meltzer gave. Maybe I thought it was like a 4 star. But then came the main event. Everybody was waiting for this. Naito's, everybody thought this is finally Naito's moment. And obviously it was. It did. Well, actually, it was interrupted. But, I forgot to cover one thing from earlier. Minoru Suzuki showed up after the United States heavyweight title match, which is really crazy because I've actually been wanting to see this. Because Minoru Suzuki, we know how hard-hitting he is. We know how violent he is. John Moxley, he's violent in a different way. He's not as violent with the strikes, but he's intense, and he's got he uses a lot of weapons. And Minoru Suzuki's always that guy that's playing mind games and so physical. And I think it makes for a great matchup. They further the next night when Moxley attacked Minoru Suzuki, and I think it's happening during the New Beginning. I think it's a great matchup, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be at least. It's got to be at least like 4 1/4 stars in my opinion. I don't see where they can go wrong with this. But anyway, so Naito beat Okada. I remember, this was actually the only moment of the second night that had me jumping out of my seat when Naito won, and I thought it was a great match. Lots of near falls. I thought the way Naito did he did a callback to his old finisher, the Stardust Press. I thought that was really awesome. Bringing something back, and I think if he would have won with that, that would be his new finisher. But because that was his finisher. I think the last time, when he got, not the last time they faced off, but when he got robbed, I think it was Wrestle Kingdom 8 when he was supposed to be in the main event, but it got voted out in favor of, I think it was a Nakamura Tanahashi match. I think he actually lost to Okada that year as well for the heavyweight title, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's Naito Okada was the match at Wrestle Kingdom 8, and he lost. And but it's a nice moment of redemption for Naito. It was a great match. I was on my toes for this one. Got a lot of near falls. I already said that, and I think that they made it longer than it had to be, but I think it was actually good in this case. The amount of stuff that they did, I felt like it wasn't. I can't really remember that much that they did, but they were able to stretch it out and they had a lot of storytelling in it because we know the history behind Naito and Okada. He lost at Wrestle Kingdom 8. And not only that, he got voted out of the main event, as I said, and he lost again at Wrestle Kingdom 12, and this was finally his time. And I don't know if it's long-term storytelling or if it's just, oh, perfect. We'll have Naito and give him his big moment now. But, he won the match. I was really happy. And then, of course, he was going to do the roll call for LIJ to end the night. He said, Los Ingobernables, and then obviously Kenta jumps him, which is, I think, it's really disrespectful by Gato, who's the head booker in New Japan, because although it does put the heat on Kenta, and I understand why he did it, never happened to Okada. Why is it happening to Naito? They're continuing to screw Naito, and I don't think it's fair to take away his moment at the Dome when it's never happened to Okada. I don't think it's ever happened to Tanahashi. But Gato's like, oh, well, why don't we just screw Naito again? And if he really feels that way, and it wasn't just if Naito didn't want that to happen, and Gato was like, oh, it's gotta happen. I think that's really disrespectful. That would actually be really bad. And if reports start to come out that did happen, I think there's gonna be a lot of backlash, and I will be very, very angry because that's so disrespectful to somebody who's been working for New Japan for so long. Obviously, he had a little bit of an excursion in a few years ago when he went to Mexico, became El Ingobernable, but for somebody that's worked for you for so many years, it's just morals. You don't do that. But I have a feeling that Naito probably agreed to it because I don't think Gato would do that to him. I don't think Gato's like that. Hopefully not. But yeah. So obviously Liger retired. For me, I didn't watch so much of him because I started watching 2015 or 16. I forget which year, and I only really became a hardcore fan like late 2017. That was when I really started to get into Ring of Honor New Japan. Before that, I watched a little bit of Impact with the Broken Hardys, but not much more than that. So I never really knew much about Liger, never really watched him too much. So, I can't say, oh, I was a big fan, I'm really emotional about it. Obviously, it's an emotional retirement because, he's a legend, but, it was emotional for a lot of other people, more so than it was for me because, I'm still young, so I didn't get to watch so much of him earlier on, but he said that he was never going to come back, he's never going to unretire. But, I mean, even Shawn Michaels did, so I guess you never know. We'll see if he keeps his word. And jeez, that was really tough. That was long. Let's talk about Raw. So Big Show made his return to help Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe against Seth Rollins and AOP. It's pretty interesting. He never officially retired, and I think he said that he wants to retire. If he's gonna retire, he wants to do it quietly. He's not gonna announce it. Not gonna do some kind of speech. He's just gonna go out quietly. So I think that also though opens up the door always for him to come back for something. And I think he's gonna be that guy that he's always gonna be available. If he wants to. I mean, not that he's always available, but he's always gonna be somebody that you consider if WWE wants to have a legend return. So they've set up a fist fight in quotes for Raw, this week, which I don't really understand, because I mean, what is this supposed to be, a boxing match? Is it gonna be a shoot? Is it gonna be a work? I mean, there's punches dished out in most wrestling matches anyway. That's Big Show's finishing move, basically. So I'm assuming that they're probably gonna win via a Big Show knockout punch. But I don't really understand why they're doing this. It's just dumb, I feel like. But I guess, we'll give it a chance. We'll see what they do. Maybe they come with something good for it. The Lashley, Liv Morgan, Lana, and Rusev storyline. Jesus. Listen, I thought Rusev should have beat Lashley, but of course not. Then they want to set up this dumb wedding thing. And then you have some kind of, this is your life kind of angle with, we know it hasn't really been successful recently. And now they basically did it again. And then, obviously Liv Morgan came out and it was like, now you want to do some kind of lesbian storyline? I don't understand where they're going with this, but I mean, at this point, for me, just please, at this point, I just feel like have Rusev win and move the hell on because nobody wants to see this anymore. I also want to talk about Rowan, who, I think they're moving forward a little bit more. Before he was just being jobbers and just got boring, and now he's finally doing something with this, his little pet that he has that apparently spits red mist now. So it's gonna be interesting because it can't be a human in there. It's not gonna be like some you know some person in there that's spitting red mist out. It's obviously not possible. So it's actually kind of interesting. I don't know what that thing is, but it's gonna be interesting what they come up with to put in there. I don't know if they already know or if they're just waiting, taking their time to figure out what they want to put in it. But I don't know if this is gonna because Rowan's a more interesting character now, which is pretty cool. But I don't know if they're gonna really give him a little push or if this is just because I feel like he kind of deserves a little bit of a push with this new character. He's trying to he tried to do that little clown thing a year or two ago. So I respect Rowan for putting in effort to try to find something of interesting for his character. And then Brock, of course, Brock Lesnar, he announced his entry into the Royal Rumble at the number one spot. It's setting up a matchup with somebody. Obviously, it could be SmackDown or NXT, as Paul Heyman said. No one really knows at this point. There were rumors earlier this year that he was going to face Roman at WrestleMania, but I don't really think that's going to happen. And Roman's actually the leading odds getter to win the Royal Rumble. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll talk more about that later on. I feel like Brock's probably going to be facing Cain Velasquez again, but just because I really don't trust WWE's booking, but it could be with anybody, which makes it really unpredictable. The only bad thing is like if you're the Universal he's a WWE champion now. I feel like you should be fighting at the Royal Rumble, not entering yourself in the Rumble match. But so I'm assuming there's increased odds, I guess now, especially because of that someone from SmackDown or NXT is gonna face him. But it's really a toss up right now. No one really knows what's gonna happen. But I guess it's good that it keeps people on their toes. Drew McIntyre, I think he's actually a candidate to be facing Brock, but no one's really sure. Drew McIntyre, I think he's gonna get a push. He could definitely win the Rumble. He used to be the chosen one, then he dropped the ball. Now he's back, and he's been basically dominating. So we'll see what happens with him. As for what's been going on SmackDown, so according to Rambling Rabbit on this week's SmackDown, the Fiend can be beaten. So this is interesting. It's like a video game. There's that one little kryptonite thing that the Fiend has. It's like if you watch Jumanji, the final boss, he had like some kind of fruit thing that was his weakness. So obviously the Fiend has some kind of weakness, but it's up to somebody to figure that out, whether it be at WrestleMania or later on, maybe even next year's WrestleMania. We don't know when it's gonna happen. But Rambling Rabbit was trying to tell Daniel Bryan, and then the Fiend, just grabbed him and killed him. Obviously, if you saw a later segment, it was a dead Rambling Rabbit. So, and then the Fiend said snitches got stitches. So looks like the Fiend can be beat, and somebody's gonna have to figure out somehow, some way. So I think this is gonna be a nice long-term story where everyone's trying to figure out how the hell do we beat the Fiend. And when he finally gets beat, that whoever beats him is gonna get a huge push. And whether it be Drew McIntyre, like Drew McIntyre or Kevin Owens or maybe an Aleister Black. I think Aleister Black versus the Fiend would be a great matchup. They're both very dark characters, and it's a similar dynamic to that Demon Finn versus Bray Wyatt matchup that we had a few years ago at SummerSlam. I think it's got a similar dynamic, and if it actually makes sense if that did happen, because Aleister Black, because he's so dark, maybe you kind of relate to the Fiend and understand him and figure out how to beat him. But I think that's gonna have to wait for the Fiend to be beaten, maybe until SummerSlam or Survivor Series. We'll see. And also, I don't know if the Fiend character will continue after he gets beat. I hope it will. But if it's one little secret that will lead him to being beaten, then everyone's gonna eventually figure it out, and then the Fiend's gonna die out. So maybe Bray's planning for this to happen because he doesn't want it to keep going and get stale. But I think it's even after he gets beaten, he's got a little more in it to do with it. So he could probably use it to get some more wins. But yeah. Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Lacey Evans. Now, a lot of fans are jumping on the Lacey Evans bandwagon, which I really don't understand. I don't think she's that great in the ring. her character is just annoying. She's a good heel. I don't know why she's a babyface. And it's nice to have Bailey and Sasha as the heels, but Lacey's not ready to be a champion. She's not ready to be a main event female superstar. At least not yet. I feel like she's got a lot of things that she's got to work on. I'm not a fan of this, and I'm not a fan of people all of a sudden jumping on the Lacey Evans bandwagon. I don't know where this came from. Just fickle fans, I guess. But I'm a big fan of Bailey and Sasha because we know what they're capable of. They're great wrestlers, and I think if Bailey retains the title and Sasha can start doing a little bit more in terms of like getting into her own feuds, but also having Bailey as her friend, maybe eventually they have a showdown, which I think is probably the best way for this to end. I think things will work out great for the SmackDown Women's Division as long as Lacey doesn't get the title or start becoming a main eventer, because that's going to be a problem in my opinion. I'm not nothing against Lacey, nothing personal. I just don't think she's ready for this yet. The Usos and the Sheamus, they returned the previous week, and I think the Usos are going to be an interesting addition to this Roman Corbin Ziggler storyline, which really has to go at this point. It's just stupid and boring. I hope the Usos will just help Roman put him away and move on. Sheamus returned to attack Chad Gable. I think this might be the most interesting thing that Sheamus has ever done, because before he was kind of, he didn't have this kind of character depth, but now he has this kind of depth. He's got the same look he had many years ago, and apparently he wants to kill short people, which I mean I'm not that tall. If I ever was a professional wrestler, Sheamus would probably be coming after me, but I guess it works. They're trying to establish him as a dominant heel. I thought he was going to return as a babyface, but if he's a heel, he's a good heel. I think he's a better heel than he is a babyface, so that works. John Morrison also returned, and I thought that the way he was talking at first, attacking the fans and being like, how could you do that to my friend The Miz, it was almost like a tweener kind of thing, and I thought they could have really used that to gain some support for him. That's one thing I think WWE does wrong, because that thing is actually something that I feel like a babyface would say. Even though it's attacking the fans, it feels a little more babyface because he's looking out for his friend. But I feel like with what he did later on, it was becoming clear he was going to be a heel. The Mandy and Otis storyline is a lot more interesting than Lashley and Lana. Let me say that. I'm actually kind of a fan of it because it's interesting because it's not the typical lover storyline. Otis is a kind of weird dude, and Mandy and him, they're not really connecting completely, but there might be something there, and the point of the story is just let's see if they can finally start clicking. Braun Strowman, he beat Shinsuke Nakamura, I believe, this week. He really deserves a singles title. He's been doing so great, and he's had chances to win a singles title, but WWE never pulled the trigger. And I think it's finally time for him to be champion. It's going to raise the prestige of the title a lot. To have him and Nakamura, who are two great competitors, clashing over the title. I have to talk about CM Punk and The Miz went at it over what The Miz said on WWE Backstage, which was, I think he said, sorry I didn't change the culture, which was a shot at what CM Punk said the first time he was on WWE Backstage, because he said that he was going to change the culture, and Punk then said on Twitter, I think this tweet got deleted, but if I remember correctly, he said, "Go suck a blood-covered I don't want to curse, but dick, in Saudi Arabia, you effing dork." I'm pretty sure that's what he said. So it's interesting because Punk is now all this beef with all these different guys that are wrestling, but he's not wrestling. Obviously, he's not gonna let this just pull him in. He's made that clear, and I think that's good of him. If it's not what he wants to do, then don't do it. But also part of me is like, he's the Miz is going to Saudi Arabia, and that's I'm not knocking him for it, but there's a lot of controversy over it, and I don't understand why some people are taking shots at CM Punk. Obviously, CM Punk, you could tell if you look at some of his past segments with the Miz, they never liked each other. Like in, like that's like for real, not just like on screen. They never really liked each other in person. You could tell, and so I don't know why these guys are trying to start. Miz, Seth Rollins. I don't know why people are trying to start beef with CM Punk. There's no point. He doesn't want to wrestle. He doesn't want to wrestle. Leave him alone. Um, so for the Royal Rumble, I there's so many potential candidates to win this year. I don't exactly know. I mentioned a few: Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens. I think Cain Velasquez. If he wins the Rumble, that's a disaster. But I think he has actually a solid shot, which is not good. He's new. He shouldn't be winning the Rumble. If you want to set up a match with Brock, just go ahead and do it. But if he becomes champion, I don't know what the hell WWE is doing. I don't see a point in having another match like that. I mean, not like that was a terrible match. I didn't even watch it. But like there's no point in setting up a rematch. Is what I mean. So yeah. So there would be the Rumble winner would either challenge a Universal or a WWE champion. For the women, I was originally thinking that Becky Lynch would probably beat Asuka, and then I was thinking that Ronda would win the Royal Rumble, and she would return and she would, win. She would win the Rumble, lose to Becky at WrestleMania, and then Shayna would come up and be a surprise, and she would how do I say this? Get revenge for her friend Ronda Rousey, and probably win the title. I think because otherwise, then Becky has no one else to face. She's kind of faced everybody, so I think Shayna Baszler will beat Becky and then set up the four horsemen women versus four horsewomen match at another big four pay-per-view. But the betting odds are actually showing that Shayna Baszler is a huge favorite. Not like a favorite. It's not like she's like a big negative number to win the match. She's like it's about even, but like that's huge for the Royal Rumble because there's so many potential people. And I think like the next highest odds is like Ronda with like 4-1 or something like that. So Baszler's got huge odds. So I mean, it could be reversed. Shayna wins a Rumble, loses to Becky, and then Ronda comes back and is a surprise, or maybe she went. I really don't know, but I mean, then it would be like you putting the title on Ronda if because then she would have to avenge Shayna for losing. So I don't. It's all kind of confusing. I still feel like the Ronda winning the Rumble actually makes more sense, although because Baszler's better, and that's the thing. Because if she wins the Rumble, then she's gonna have to lose to set up that 4v4 match. So I think it's better if Ronda wins the Rumble. But either way, I think that there's positives to look at. AEW what was I saying? AEW has been doing pretty good. They've been beating NXT the past couple of weeks. Even though they lost, I think they didn't have a show on the 25th, which was Christmas. And the previous week, I think they lost. But they have 2 straight wins. Obviously the first one was because NXT only had an awards show. But AEW has had 2 straight wins so far to start off 2020. So looking good for them. So let's start off by talking about the Dark Order. I feel like Hangman Page might actually join them because, it's pretty obvious that he's going to turn heel soon, and there's supposed to be an exalted one in quotes. So it could be Broken Matt Hardy, it could be Luke Harper, it could be Marty Scurll. We don't know. I think Marty Scurll's the best candidate because he's got a little bit that evil in him. But Broken Matt would be interesting too because Broken Matt he's got a little bit of something different too. Luke Harper, he's now known as Brody Lee. He's unpredictable. We don't know what we're gonna get from him. So, I guess he's like the dark horse to be the exalted one. But it could also be Hangman, and I think Hangman's almost a lock. And I think if it's Hangman and Marty, that actually makes a lot of sense because 2 members of the Elite are now there, and the 4 members of the Elite that are that have management roles basically Cody, Kenny, and the Young Bucks, they'll be baby faces, and it makes for something like an interesting dynamic, I guess. Uh, and the Dark Order also offered to let Christopher Daniels join them, CD, and he turned him down. So I actually thought maybe when they did it, I thought maybe he would turn heel because he's kind of like it's like Frankie and Scorp are the champs, and he's kind of just there. And but it looks like he's gonna remain a babyface. I think it's good that they kept him with SCU though. I think looking at the bigger picture, it's the better decision. Moxley and Jericho, I thought that was a great segment to end the show on Wednesday. I saw that live. You kind of knew that Moxley was going to join Jericho. Like you kind of had that feeling that it was going to be last minute, just because that's just kind of who Mox is. So you felt it, and I did the whole time. At first it kind of got me. I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, no. There's no way Mox is joining, and obviously he hit Jericho with a little bit of the bubbly, and which is good. He's gonna remain a tweener, and I think it's better for Mox's character overall. It wouldn't really make sense for him to join the inner circle because, well, like he's like he marches to the beat of his own drum. He does his own thing. I don't feel like he would fit. He's not that kind of heel that the inner circle requires. So now we're gonna talk about NXT. Keith Lee becomes #1 contender for the North American title. And I think it's the right decision because this really raises the prestige of the North American title because, I mean, think about it. Keith Lee's been on a roll, especially since Survivor Series when he beat Roman Reigns. I mean, when he made it to the final two with Roman Reigns and lost. And I think that having him, he's going to beat Roderick Strong. I think there's no way that Roderick Strong gets out of there with the title unless there's a DQ. I think Keith Lee has been really good. He definitely deserves this, and I hope he does win. I was always in favor. I always liked the idea that the UE prophecy, where Undisputed Era, that all four members would be holding gold. But I think it's time for Keith Lee It's Keith Lee's time to win. Cameron Grimes, he's been showing out really, and I think he's gonna be somebody that gets a little bit more TV time. He's been doing really good, and it's a surprise because before I didn't really know who he was, but I watched a little bit of this past NXT, and he looks good, and I wouldn't mind to see more of him because his in-ring skills are solid. I'm not really sure about his character. I haven't been watching for too long, but I guess I'll find more as the weeks go on. The Undisputed Era Imperium advanced to the Dusty Classic, and actually today, the Undisputed Era invaded NXT UK Takeover Blackpool 2, and I think they attacked Imperium. So maybe they're setting up a 4v4 for the next NXT Takeover, or maybe the NXT Takeover. I guess it would be Takeover Tampa, which would be the day before WrestleMania. Maybe they want to do that. There's rumors that Io Shirai is unhappy in the company, but I really don't know how much truth there is to that because, although yes, she's never won the NXT Women's Championship, she is still one of the top women in the division, and I mean, I guess maybe it's understandable that she's away from home. I think, she and Evil are engaged, so Evil obviously works for New Japan. Not really sure how much truth there is to that. There could be some truth. I'm not sure what's gonna happen with that. But all I know is Io Shirai is a great wrestler, and so is Evil. There's been so much going on in wrestling these past few weeks. There's so much to talk about. Oh, Killer Cross. He's no longer working with Impact, I'm pretty sure. So AEW and WWE could be signing him, and if he signs with WWE, obviously it'll be with NXT. I think he's dating Scarlett Bordeaux. I'm not sure if they're married or if they're dating, but they're definitely together. So that would make a lot of sense for him. But you can't blame him for joining AEW if he decides to go with that because his character kind of fits AEW more than it does NXT. But for his life purposes, for his romantic purposes, if he decides to join NXT, you can't blame him for that either. But if he does decide to join AEW, that would be interesting because you already have a couple of couples with one person in AEW and one person in well, I guess WWE, because it's Shawn Spears and Peyton Royce and Adam Cole and Britt Baker. So we might have a new couple that does that. Namely Killer Cross and Scarlett Bordeaux. WWE ice cream sandwiches are coming, and I'm not sure exactly when they're coming, but it's not the original ice cream bars that they had, but it's basically a similar thing, except it doesn't have the stick, and it's probably a little bit smaller. But I'm excited. It might not be as good. I never tried the old ones, but everyone said they were good. So might as well give these a shot. They might be really good too. I'm not sure when they release. It was said that they're released on Good Humor's website, but I checked and it's not there. So I'm waiting on their release. Now we're gonna talk about championship prestige, which I mentioned earlier on, and a lot of companies are messing this up. New Japan, they messed up with the junior tag titles. I think they messed up with for sure they messed up with the Never Six Man tag titles. They've messed up a little bit with the United States title. If Naito doesn't drop the Intercontinental Championship soon, they're gonna end up messing up with that title. They actually did a while ago, I think. Forgot what happened with the title, but I forgot how they messed up, but I remember they did mess up. And the Never Open Weight title, excuse me, they definitely messed up with that. I think the Never Six Man and the Never Singles Championship they really messed up with, and I really don't know what they're doing. And the thing with title prestiges in wrestling, it's very interesting how it works, because you need to give the title a prominent spot, but also you need to have a legitimatized wrestlers holding it. You can't have jobbers holding it, and it's something that's messing up WWE with the 24/7 championship, and the WWE's messing up with the United States championship. I think they've been doing it for a while, but actually no, they've kind of been getting back on the right track. But I mean, previously they did a horrendous job with that title. They're really not doing a good job with any of their titles, to be honest. Their title prestige is all going down. Like, Brock doesn't show up. He's a WWE champion. The Fiend Bray Wyatt, he doesn't show up much in the ring, like for matches. But it's understandable, because of his character. So you could give him a pass on that. Until I mentioned the fact that Shinsuke Nakamura is the Intercontinental the Intercontinental Champion earlier, I didn't even know who was the Intercontinental Champion. So from where the Intercontinental Championship was a year ago, 2 years ago, to where it is now, I don't know what they're doing. They're really messing it up. I said the United States Heavyweight Championship for the WWE, that's getting back on track in the right direction. Who are even the tag champions again? Oh, the Viking Raiders, and I don't even know. The Viking Raiders, they haven't been able to do much recently. It's just frustrating sometimes just seeing this. It's the same people and the same kind of matchups. The Viking Raiders, OC, and Street Profits. It's just them. I don't even know who the SmackDown Tag Team Champions are. I'd have to look it up. I'm gonna ask Siri right now. Hey Siri, who are the SmackDown Tag Team Champions? Let's see. It is the New Day. Yeah, the prestige. There needs to be a focus not just on the wrestling itself, but the titles too. So yeah, overall, man, championship prestige is very important in wrestling, and I hope a lot of companies start to realize that, and really put a focus on that going forward. And I think I forgot to talk about the first two matches on the AEW show this week. I'm pretty sure, obviously the matches on a weekly show aren't going to be as good as the matches on a pay-per-view, but I think those are very solid matches. So AEW, I think they usually start strong with their show, which I think is a good thing that they should keep up. And speaking of AEW, there could be a partnership brewing between New Japan. Remember what Jericho said about, he's always open to having, actually, he broke character kind of in the press conference after Wrestle Kingdom. He said he's open to anybody from New Japan coming over to AEW and challenging him. and New Japan and Impact just had slash Access just had a fallout. So New Japan is no longer working with them. It's rumored that they have some tension with Ring of Honor as well, because Ring of Honor is not delivering. So maybe they start working with AEW in the future. I'm not really sure. So more on AEW. I want to talk about their tag and women's divisions. Their tag team division is, I mean, I think everyone can agree on this. They have the best tag team division in the world. The Young Bucks, Lucha Bros, LAX slash Proud. Oh my God, they're called Proud and Powerful now. They have the Jungle Express, the Best Friends, SCU. So many, this is really, really incredible. I don't think we've had a tag division like this in a long time, if ever. So I like that they're really capitalizing on this, and they're making something good with it. But their women's division, I mean, this is really, really bad. People are knocking the, I don't even know what they're called. Brandy, Awesome Kong, and the other people. I don't even know who they are, honestly. I think they have something interesting going with their characters, but and I don't like how people are knocking them, but they need to start doing something with it. And the women are, other than Chris Statlander, and they haven't really been able to put on some really good matches, and I think they're suffering. And I don't know, Kenny's in charge of the women's division, I think, and I think Brandy's a little bit too. So I think they gotta, try to go in there and try to, patch things up a little bit, because they have some solid talent, but they gotta use them all right. Putting them all, skyrocketing them straight into the title picture, it's not smart. Because some of them aren't ready, in my opinion. I want to talk a little bit about Chris Jericho's finisher, the Judas Effect. I feel like it just doesn't look that good, to be honest. And I think that, obviously something new, but I feel like he's, his other moves, the Codebreaker, Lion Salt, Lion Tamer, Walls of Jericho, a lot of his other moves are better. So, I'm not really too big of a fan of this move. I hope they switch it up soon. Jericho is always trying to reinvent himself. So, maybe I'll get my wish. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention earlier, Kenta actually attacked Naito again, and I think Switchblade Jay White did too. And Kenta wants to chase, I forgot if it's the Intercontinental or Heavyweight Championship of Tetsuya Naito, but there also the win from this. Oh, we never talked about the second. Did I ever finish on? I think I. Oh no, I did talk about it, but I didn't talk about it too much. The Jay White versus Kota Ibushi match, I think it was bad that Ibushi lost twice, and I don't really see a point in the match. I think maybe that's why. Now I realize that's why Meltzer might have given it 3 stars, because now Ibushi loses twice. They turn him heel, and now I'm gonna address that. I feel like, yes, he should turn heel at some point because of his abilities, and obviously he has a lot of power coming from the inside, and he just oozes emotion and aggression sometimes. But I feel like he's got more to give as a babyface, and they should not have done this so fast, because now, guess what? There's so many heels in New Japan. Who are the babyfaces? LIJ is full of heels. Suzuki-gun is all heels. Bullet Club is all heels. I mean, what are you left with? Chaos and Finjuice? I don't know who else. John Moxley is basically a heel. It's really just Chaos and Finjuice, and that's not good. It's like everybody's turning heel, and there's no really baby faces left other than what? Okada and Tanahashi. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Tanahashi. That's about it. And they got to be careful, because once they get too many heels, and what are you gonna do? You're gonna turn some of them babyface again, but then it's just gonna be you're rapidly turning everybody, and it's just they should kind of milk the cow a little more with Ibushi as a babyface before turning him heel, in my opinion. And I mentioned this earlier, I think. LIJ, they've basically got a hold on a bunch of titles. Naito's a double champion. Hiromu's a junior heavyweight champion. Evil, Shingo, and Bushi are never 6-man champions. I think Sonata might be in the Intercontinental Championship soon. Be the Intercontinental Champion soon. So they're I mean, I think they're gonna New Japan and Gato are trying to book Lij as a dominant faction throughout 2020. I think that's smart because it shouldn't happen. This should have happened 2 years ago, but New Japan decided to go with the Kane, route. So, um, I think now it's Lij's time, and I'm not the biggest Lij fan. I am a Lij fan, but not the biggest one. But I'm happy that they're finally getting their time. And I already said on New Year's Dash, Naito attack Kenta attacked Naito again. The only problem with this is I don't think Kenta's ready. He hasn't shown that he can compete on this level. Jay White has at least shown something. He has a lot to improve on. I don't think he should be in there yet. But Kenta is really, really not ready. And if they're like, this is kind of like Ring of Honor. What Ring of Honor did because, before Ring of Honor they didn't have because they had so many people leaving, especially the Elite and SCU, and then their main event scene was wide open. So all of these new people flooded in, like Matt Taven and Roosh, and now it's PCO in there, Marty Scurll. So now it's it looks like that in New Japan now because why are you putting Kenta in there? He's not ready for this, and you're putting him in there already, and it just feels kind of rushed. And the difference is, Ring of Honor, they had a wide open scene, and they had to find people to fill these spots. New Japan has so much talent; they don't need to do this, which is bad because why are you putting Kenta in there? Have him stay in the never openweight championship scene and put the people who are already in this heavyweight title scene. Will Ospreay, he's somebody that is ready. Kota Ibushi, do a little bit more with him. There are people that are ready. Don't rush it with Kenta. Kenta has talent. We know that. But he hasn't shown that he can have, a 4.5-star match kind of thing. He needs a little bit more time. Maybe because he hasn't done this in a while. Or maybe he just doesn't care, which is really bad. But then, then you don't put him, you don't reward him for that. He's not doing as good as we expected him to. And now you're putting him in the main event scene, then what? Then maybe he thinks it's okay now to keep doing things at that level, and it's really not okay. But yeah, I'm kind of ranting a little bit, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out there about, all the things that are going on in wrestling right now. But as for why don't we talk about something positive though? I want to give a shout out to HOG House of Glory. It's not too far from where I am right now, and it's even closer actually to where I'm from. I'm from Forest Hills. I live in Great Neck. Forest Hills. I grew up there, and it's House of Glory is based in Ridgewood, which is only 2 towns away, and their shows are taking place in Jamaica, which is literally just down the same subway line as from Forest Hills, and they were doing a great job with what they had. I think they're the top wrestling school in the world right now. Well, one of the top wrestling schools, if not the top, because there's a lot of great ones. So I can't definitively say that it's the best one, but it's definitely up there, if not the best one. So many people came out of there. Private Party, Matt Travis, who died recently, R.I.P. He came out of there. So many people got their start there. Ken Broadway. There's so many young talents that they got there. I went to one of their shows back in August. They're doing some great stuff, and they're getting credit for. I've heard good things about them from the Young Bucks. I actually got to talk to the Young Bucks. I met the Young Bucks during the summer, so I want to give some props to them. They're having their 9th anniversary show coming up called 9-9, I think, or it's just 9. It's just their name of the show is the word 9, and then with the number 9 right after. So I don't know what they're calling it, but yeah. So if you guys are in the New York area, go check it out. I'm probably not going to be able to go because I don't have the money to go, and my parents won't approve. But if you guys are in the New York area and you're a big wrestling fan, show some love. And they're doing a great job, and Master P just bought them out, and I think not bought them out. He bought them, so now he owns them. He wants to help take them to the next level, and I think they will be at the next level very soon. And I talked about Ring of Honor a little bit earlier, and obviously I said they've declined in relevancy, and now recently they've announced that they're going to have a free show in Baltimore. So obviously, part of it is like, okay, this is nice. They're doing something good for the fans, but also part of it's like, you know, this is showing that they're desperate now for people to come to their shows because nobody's really interested anymore, and they want people to come. And I feel like they gotta sign some people because they we know what they can do. They've been one of the top promotions in the world in the past. Just 2 years ago, they were up there with New Japan and WWE, and now they're not, they can't even be mentioned in the same sentence. Not even in the same sentence as maybe Impact at this point. Speaking of Impact, Impact has an event tonight. Actually, it's called Hard to Kill. Yeah, tonight is Hard to Kill, and I just wanted to talk about Sami Callihan versus Tessa Blanchard because originally everybody was for Tessa Blanchard winning the Impact World Championship tonight, but there have been reports of her being racist and being hard to work with recently. So it's going to be interesting to see where Impact goes with this tonight. And I think the smart decision would be either, I actually read this on Instagram, to either keep the title on Sami Callihan. He's a great wrestler. There's really not too much of a problem with that, or putting the title on Tessa Blanchard and using it to gain her heel heat. It's going to be controversial, but that is another option that may work. But I mean, in my opinion, I think I've known that Tessa Blanchard's hard to work with, but now if she's being racist too, I mean, this is not looking for good for Tessa Blanchard in her career. There's a lot of people that have been giving her props and compliments throughout this year and maybe the year prior. I think I think Cody and Brandy may have said they wanted to bring in Tessa Blanchard if they could, but obviously she's under contract, and I know I think no, I think did Sasha Banks say she wanted to wrestle her? It was Sasha Banks and either Tessa Blanchard or another Impact star, but Tessa Blanchard, she's a solid wrestler, and it's sad to see that she's like this, because I mean maybe it's why she's become so relevant, because she's hard to work with and making it so that she has to win, and if that's the case, then she's gonna lose popularity fast, and this is not gonna be good for her. But the opposite, the show, a promotion that's going the opposite trend is NWA, who has Marty Scurll challenging for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship soon, and they have, they're different from all the other wrestling promotions now because they said that they want to kind of be more old school, focus on the storytelling, and they've done that. And I think it's good to have something different. There are a lot of different wrestling companies now. You got New Japan with their hard hitting stuff, WWE with their family friendly stuff, AEW with the the how do I say it? It's just what the fans want, and it's just kind of a combination of WWE, NJPW, and just their own also their own little, they got their own little thing to it. And now you got NWA, which is trying to be old school, and I think it's good for pro wrestling because it's right when people say that there's never been a better time to be a pro wrestling fan, and NWA as along with the other promotions are showing that. So now I want to talk about, I touched a little bit on this earlier, NJPW's problems. So one is that I actually didn't talk about this earlier. I mean, there's ones that I already talked about, but this one I want to talk about is a lack of their recent homegrown talent. Because if you notice recently, a lot of their talent is coming from other places, not from the New Japan dojo. Recently, maybe you've had like Sonata and Evil and Hiromu maybe from the dojo. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure if Evil and Sonata were even there. But you notice they're bringing Kenta, Moxley, Osprey, Kenny. I mean, he left, but before when Kenny was there, you have all these guys that are coming from other places, and the only kind of you got obviously Okada, Naito, Tanahashi. They came from the dojo, but nothing too recent, which is a problem because before they had so many people that are coming from the dojo, and it's not the case anymore. And if this isn't the case, then they're going to turn into WWE where they can't grow their own talent and be kind of their own supplier of talent, and it's going to bite them in the rear end in the future. I don't really know how to describe it. It's when you don't have homegrown talent and you're just pulling from other places, you're just poaching at that point. And NXT's a little bit like that, except NXT can also grow its own superstars. New Japan has shown that they could in the past, but if they continue like this, then they're just going to be poaching, and look at what happened to Shinsuke Nakamura. Think of that, and not that it's going to be as bad for people who go to New Japan, but stuff like that is going to happen. People are going to be big names somewhere else, come over and not be as big, and it's going to be a problem for New Japan or any promotion that does that. Another problem is they have a lack of a deep mid card and mid card champions. Think about it. I mentioned this earlier. Goto constantly never openweight champion. The Intercontinental Championship before Naito was, it was him and Ibushi, but before that, I mean, it was getting jumbled around. The United States Heavyweight Championship, I mentioned that before. Never six-man champion. Oh, never six-man championships. I guess that's not really mid card. I mean, you understand what I mean. They have a lack of a deep mid card. What is it? Kenta, Shingo, maybe now. Evil and Sanada are kind of more of a tag team. I guess if you put them in there, it's them, right? Ibushi's a heavyweight now, so he can't count. I mean, Goto, Ishii, Minoru Suzuki, Jon Moxley. But you're splitting these. Keep in mind, you're splitting these guys amongst, three titles. So, I mean, I guess actually, from a few months ago, or actually not a few months ago, from before the G1, it's definitely a lot better. But I think they could use a lot more depth still, because we can see there's still issues. They're putting Tai Chi in the I think it was the Never Championship picture, which he really doesn't belong there. I'm really not a fan of what he does. Not I'm not on him as a person, but I just don't like what he does inside the ring. And yeah, all their champions are repeating, which is another issue. You need to be able to bring in new champions, not just from abroad, but again, homegrown new champions. Because think about it, we've seen most of these guys as champions before, especially Goto. He's always the never openweight champion. And I mentioned the lack of junior tag depth, so there's that. I guess some of this is a problem, but maybe they need to bring in some more guys to the main event scene and not name Kenta, people who are ready, so Ospreay. So I think that's something they could work on as well. Edge. There's been reported that he's actually a lock to return at the Royal Rumble, which it's great because obviously he retired many years ago. We thought he was never going to come back, but now there's a chance that he might come back. He signed a deal. That's definitely happened. The question is it a Legends deal or is it a deal for a return? And if it's a deal with a return, hopefully it's not a crappy return. Hopefully it's not going to be a Goldberg Undertaker match 2.0. Hopefully he's going to have a solid comeback. And, I think he will return at the Rumble because, he had that, a little bit of action at SummerSlam where he speared Elias. So he can definitely do something. And if he does return at the Rumble, he's going to get a big pop. And the last thing I want to mention, this is big. But it's not going to have too much of an impact on the future, but Wrestle Kingdom 14's original plans. It was reported that their original plans were Kenny would have won last year if he had stayed at Wrestle Kingdom 13 against Tanahashi. He would have won. Came into this year as champion again. And he would have faced Okada at the G1 Supercard. Now, personally, I'm really salty about that because I went to the G1 Supercard and we got Okada versus Switchblade Jay White. It was a pretty good match, but imagine we would have had Omega Okada 5 if Kenny hadn't left. And that I missed out. And, us as wrestling fans, we missed out. And, it's a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is, I guess. But anyway, I think Ibushi would have still won the G1, and it would have been Ibushi challenging Kenny on the first night. I think it was supposed to be that Okada actually would have found a way to win the Intercontinental Championship. He would have lost it to Naito, and Ibushi would have lost to Kenny. Yeah, he would have lost to Kenny, and it would have been Kenny versus Naito and Okada versus Ibushi on the second night. Now that's actually very interesting because we would have had Okada Ibushi twice then. We also would have had Okada versus Naito. We would have had another Omega versus Ibushi match, and we would have had another Kenny versus Naito match. So I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of what Kenny's been doing in AEW, because like I know I'm still a big fan of his. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. But what I'm saying is that he hasn't been putting on those crazy matches that he did in New Japan, and that's kind of what we know Kenny for. So kind of part of me wishes he had stayed, because who knows what would have happened if he had stayed in all these kind of matches. Like, I'm not saying, no, I should say who knows, but I mean, obviously there would have been a lot of great stuff that went down that we missed out on. We wouldn't have had Kenny versus Moxley. That would have been, that was a great match, and obviously that would have been sad not to have it. But I mean, all these matches, I mean, it sounds a lot better to me. Anyway, that's where we're gonna end our podcast here. We got a new non wrestling, just purely sports podcast coming out soon. We're gonna have me, and we're gonna have Liam, my friend Liam, who's usually here with me, doing the podcast, and we're gonna have one or two surprise special guests. I think it's one. We might have two, but I'm gonna keep you guys on your toes, and I'm out.